What if the greatest power you'll ever hold was handed to you at birth, but no one told you how to use it? What if the real reason your life isn't changing isn't because of bad luck or lack of opportunity, but because you've never been taught to direct this inner power the right way? Neville Goddard believed every human being was gifted by God with something sacred, the ability to think, to imagine, to feel, and to focus, not just to survive, but to create consciously, not in the mystical sense, not in the way of fantasy or wishful thinking, but in the way that matters, by aligning your inner world so powerfully, so intentionally that your outer world slowly bends to match it. This isn't a theory. It's not motivation for the sake of hype. It's a pattern, tested over time, again and again by people who discovered something quietly miraculous. Your life is not responding to your effort. It's responding to your inner image. You see, most people are taught that action comes first. You hustle, you grind, you chase, and maybe if you're lucky, you get what you want. But Neville flipped this on its head. He said it is not the action that creates results. It is the state you operate from. In this video, you're going to discover something most people never learn: how to use your God-gifted faculties to bring order, purpose, and clarity to your life. You'll learn how to stop reacting and start assuming. You'll learn how to stop hoping and start living from the end. And most of all, you'll learn how to work with what's already within you, not wish for something that feels far away. We'll walk through the exact method Neville taught to tap into your inner vision, without superstition, without magical thinking, and without trying to control everything. You'll see how simple it is, and why almost no one does it consistently. This is about training your perception, your emotion, your identity. This is about planting an idea so deeply into your subconscious mind that it becomes natural, effortless, automatic. And when it does, you won't need to force change. You'll live it. Stay with me till the end, because in the final part of this video, I'll walk you through a simple yet profound daily practice that can help you shift your internal state, starting tonight. By the end, you'll understand how what you think, feel, and imagine is not random. It's not weak. It's not meaningless. It is, in fact, the most powerful tool you've been given. And when used wisely, it can move mountains. So let's begin. Welcome to Ignis Mindset, where we go deep into the teachings of Neville Goddard and beyond, unlocking the power of thought, inner awareness, and self-discipline to help you shape the life you truly desire. If you find meaning in mastering your inner world, subscribe to our channel, turn on the notifications, and join a growing community that chooses to live on purpose from the inside out. Now, let's unlock what's already inside you. Before we talk about the results people seek, the success, the money, the relationships, the health, we need to address the real source of it all, the mind and the gift that lives inside it. Neville Goddard called imagination the foundation of all creation, but not imagination in the way we're taught as children, not daydreaming, not escapism, not fantasy. He meant something deeper, a mental structure that governs the entire way we live, feel, and act. He said, man is all imagination, and God is man's imagination. But this doesn't mean that man is God or that imagination replaces the Creator. No, it means that the ability to imagine, to conceive inwardly, to hold a vision and believe in it before seeing it, is a divine gift. It is something given to us, not something we created ourselves. It is not divine in itself, but it is given by the divine to serve a purpose. That purpose is to act as the bridge between thought and outcome, between faith and experience. We have this faculty, the ability to imagine, to focus, to hold inner pictures, and to build mental realities. Every human being has it, and most people use it daily, unconsciously. But instead of imagining the best, they imagine the worst. Instead of rehearsing victory, they rehearse failure, not on purpose, but by habit. This is where the power of focus enters. What you dwell on mentally, what you replay, what you emphasize, what you accept as possible, starts forming the lens through which you view the world. You might think you're simply reacting to reality, but in truth, your reactions are based on your inner framework. What you assume to be true will continue to reflect itself in what you experience. Neville taught that the imagination is not passive. It's not something we only use in art or storytelling. It's active. It's precise. It's the birthplace of all experience. And the tragedy is that most people never learn how to guide it deliberately. That brings us to something many miss. Why, if this power is so real, do so few people manifest what they truly want? It's not because the principle doesn't work. It's not because they're not capable. It's because they use this power in the wrong direction. They imagine fear, not faith. They mentally rehearse failure. They anticipate disappointment. They assume rejection. They see themselves small, and then they wonder why nothing grows. They live in a loop, expecting the worst, receiving it, and confirming that expectation. And so life becomes a cycle of reinforced doubt. Neville said, assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact. That's not just poetic, it's a psychological reality. The more you repeat a certain mental pattern, even if it contradicts what you want, the more that pattern will find its way into your external world. Think about how most people move through life. They wait to see results. They wait for the bank account to grow before they feel secure. They wait for the relationship to appear before they feel loved. They wait for the success to happen before they believe in themselves. But waiting is not neutral. Waiting is a posture of doubt. It says, I don't believe I have it yet, so I can't feel it yet. And that very posture keeps them stuck. Neville reversed this completely. He said, you must assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. That means you carry the inner atmosphere, the identity, the conviction of already having what you seek. And only then does the external world begin to respond. This is not about pretending. It's not lying to yourself. It's choosing to embody the mental and emotional state that aligns with the life you say you want. It's saying, I choose to think, feel, and act from the place where it's already done. Not because I see it yet, but because I trust the process. The mind, the imagination, the power to focus. These are not just mental tools. They are the architects of experience. You cannot build a house while believing it will fall apart. You cannot grow a seed while doubting it will ever break through the soil. And here's what most don't realize. You're already using this power. You're already visualizing something. You're already imagining outcomes every single day, often without realizing it. The question isn't whether you're imagining, it's what you're imagining, and whether what you're imagining serves your purpose or sabotages it. When you understand that your inner assumptions shape your perception, and your perception drives your behavior, and your behavior influences your outcome, then you realize manifestation is not about wishing, it's about alignment. Your assumptions lead, your reality follows. This is why Neville emphasized inner vision over outer reaction. Because when you change the route, the fruit has no choice but to follow, so the power God has given you isn't found in controlling others. It isn't found in magical rituals. It isn't found in chasing what's outside. It's found in the daily discipline of how you think, what you focus on, and what you emotionally accept as true. Imagination, focus, identity. These are the gifts. These are the tools, not to worship, but to steward, not to escape reality, but to reshape it from within. And if used wisely, they can change everything. There is a subtle yet life-changing shift that takes place when a person stops wishing and starts assuming. Wishing is passive. It says, I hope this happens someday, somehow. It leaves the power outside of you, in the hands of chance or circumstance. But assumption is active. It says, it is already mine. It is already done. It does not wait for the outer to change. It chooses to dwell in the inner conviction first. Neville Goddard was clear about this. You must feel yourself into the state of your wish fulfilled. That means embodying the inner state of the person you desire to become. Now, not later, not when conditions are perfect, but in this moment. And that embodiment begins with a shift in self-perception. For example, If someone wants to become confident, it's not enough to wait until others praise them. It's not enough to accumulate external achievements in the hope that they will someday feel secure. Instead, they must begin by seeing themselves in imagination as already confident. They must carry that posture inwardly, speak with that energy inwardly, walk with that certainty mentally before it manifests outwardly. This is the great reversal Neville taught. The world doesn't cause your state causes your world. The tool he often recommended for this kind of inner reconditioning was the state akim, to speak, what he called sats, but not in any mystical or magical sense. Sats is simply the deliberate use of imagination at a time when the conscious mind is quiet and the subconscious is most receptive. It begins at night when the body is fully relaxed and you are lying still, moments before sleep. In this relaxed, receptive state, you deliberately construct a short, simple scene in your mind, one that would naturally take place if your desire were already fulfilled. Not a long movie, just a single vivid moment. Maybe it's someone congratulating you. Maybe it's you shaking hands in a new job. Maybe it's walking through the home you've long imagined. The key is that the scene must imply the desire is already real. But here's where most people miss the point. This isn't just about seeing an image. It's about feeling it. Neville emphasized that the feeling of the wish fulfilled is the secret. Not just thought, not just visualization, but emotional identification. You must feel the relief, the joy, the calm certainty of it, already being true. Then you fall asleep in that state, not with anxiety, not with worry, not with doubt. You fall asleep wrapped in the feeling that it's already done. This is how the inner begins to speak to the subconscious in its own language, through repetition and emotion. The subconscious mind, as Neville described it, is not a magical entity. It doesn't operate by superstition or fantasy. It is simply the part of your mind that records and repeats patterns, like a program that keeps running whatever script it's been given. It holds on to assumptions, beliefs, and self-concepts, and reflects them into your habits, behaviors, tone of voice, posture, and the energy you carry into the world. Over time, this energy, this inner attitude, begins to alter your environment, your interactions, and your opportunities. So when you repeat these imagined scenes in a relaxed state, consistently and with feeling, you are not performing a ritual. You are rewiring the internal blueprint your subconscious uses to filter and shape reality. This is not magic, it's mental conditioning, and it happens gradually, just as you didn't learn fear, doubt, or insecurity in one night. They became part of you through repetition and emotion, and the same principles are used to replace them. Neville made it clear, your inner world must lead. The subconscious accepts what you feel to be true, even if the conscious mind tries to argue otherwise. If you keep feeding the subconscious with a new assumption, not by force, but by quiet, confident repetition, it will accept it. And once accepted, it will begin to express that new belief in your behavior, your decisions, your speech, and how others respond to you. This is how change unfolds, not by fighting the old, but by feeding the new, not by wishing, but by assuming, not by chasing what is not yet visible, but by dwelling in the unseen until it becomes seen. And the most powerful part, you don't need anything outside of you to begin. You already have the mind, you already have the imagination, you already feel, you already think. The tools are within you, gifted at birth. The only question is, how will you use them? You can continue rehearsing the fears, the doubts, the limitations, and life will continue to echo them. Or you can begin the quiet work of assuming the new identity, seeing the new version, living inwardly in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and let the outer world catch up. This is not instant. It is not a shortcut, but it is certain if you persist, because reality doesn't mirror your wishes. It mirrors your assumptions. And the greatest assumption you can ever make is the one that says, it is done. I already am who I choose to be. The world within you speaks louder than any word you say out loud. Neville Goddard emphasized that your inner speech, the silent conversations you hold in your mind, is always creating, whether you're aware of it or not. The words you repeat silently to yourself shape your beliefs, your moods, and ultimately, your life. Most people, without realizing it, fill their minds with inner talk that contradicts their desires. They beg inwardly, I hope this works, or they complain silently. Nothing ever goes right for me. Even if they appear strong on the outside, their inner world is full of contradiction, doubt, and fear. Neville taught that these internal dialogues are more powerful than outer declarations. What you consistently say within becomes what you begin to believe, and what you believe, you unconsciously act upon. Every moment, you are either reinforcing limitation or establishing new possibilities by what you whisper to yourself. That's why changing the content of your inner speech is one of the most direct ways to shift your life. This isn't just about repeating affirmations blindly. It's about aligning your thoughts with the outcome you want as if it's already real. Instead of saying, I hope I succeed, say inwardly, it feels natural to succeed. This slight change does more than adjust your language. It adjusts your posture, your decisions, and the way you see yourself. Neville made it clear. Your assumption of already being the person who has does or is what they want. That's what begins the transformation. The mind doesn't respond to empty desire. It responds to conviction. And conviction is formed through repeated, emotion-filled inner talk. This means the tone of your inner voice matters just as much as the words. A calm, steady inner voice that states, I already am, has power. It sends a message to the subconscious that this is the new normal. When you align your inner speech with a feeling of ownership, everything begins to shift. This feeling is not arrogance, and it's not fantasy. It's a quiet certainty, a sense of this is who I am now. Neville called this the emotion of assumption, the internal state of knowing. It's what turns desire into embodiment. Consider how differently you show up when something already belongs to you. If you already felt secure, how would you speak to yourself throughout the day? If you already had the opportunity you're seeking, how would you walk, think, and respond? Most people think their emotions follow results. Neville reversed that. Results follow the emotional state you dwell in. You must become the person who already has what they want, he said. That means more than pretending. It means internal transformation. It means assuming the identity of someone who is already where you want to be and letting that identity guide your inner conversations. When your self-talk begins to reflect this ownership, your decisions shift automatically. You say no to what doesn't match your new self. You are no longer desperate because inwardly you're full. This is not delusion, it's decision. It's the choice to live from a new self-concept rather than waiting for outer proof. People often confuse this with lying to themselves, but it's actually the most honest thing you can do, aligning your thoughts with the person you intend to be. If you are constantly telling yourself stories of struggle and lack, that is the lie. That is the illusion. The truth is you have the ability to reframe your identity at any moment by changing what you say within. Inner speech is not just repetition. It's a sculptor. It carves the identity you walk in. The more consistently you dwell in a fulfilled mental state, the more naturally you act from it, and life bends to match it. This is not because the world suddenly changes, but because you changed and the world now responds to who you are, not what you want. Neville reminded his students that everyone is speaking inwardly all the time. The key is becoming conscious of that speech and redirecting it with intention. Start noticing your inner dialogue in quiet moments, when you're walking, driving, lying in bed. What are you saying to yourself? Are your inner words filled with fear or confidence, doubt or faith, lack or sufficiency? And when you catch yourself slipping back into old patterns of self-talk, gently redirect. No need to scold or panic. Just shift. Speak to yourself as one who is already on stable ground. Replace "what if this doesn't work" with "this is already unfolding in my favor." Replace "I never have enough" with "I always find a way." These aren't empty phrases. They are seeds. When repeated with feeling, they begin to take root. Neville's teachings always return to the idea of assumption, not as a trick, but as a way of life. You assume not just through a single act of imagination, but through the words you choose to repeat silently throughout your day. That is your atmosphere, and your atmosphere, over time, shapes everything. The more you dwell in ownership internally, the more effortless your actions become. You no longer try to prove, force, or push. You are no longer performing. You are being. There is a difference. Acting as though something is already yours removes resistance. It clears the mental noise. You are no longer chasing outcomes. You are flowing from a place of inner knowing. This is where true confidence comes from. Not from outer validation, but from a deep, cultivated familiarity with the end result. You've lived it in imagination. You've spoken it in your mind. You've carried it in your emotional posture. So when the outer begins to shift, it doesn't surprise you. It simply confirms what you already knew. This is the power of inner speech, not just in manifesting outcomes, but in building the person who naturally receives those outcomes. You don't need to force the outer. You don't need to beg reality to cooperate. You need only to persist in your assumption, and that persistence lives in the quiet, repeated, intentional dialogue you hold within yourself every day. One of the most common mistakes people make on this path is expecting immediate outer signs to validate their inner shift. They begin to apply Neville's teachings. They visualize once or twice, and then they begin scanning their environment, looking for evidence. And when the world doesn't immediately reflect back what they imagined, doubt creeps in. They think something went wrong, but Neville taught that this mindset contradicts the very principle of living from the end. Reality lags behind assumption. The delay is not failure, it is natural law. Just as a seed takes time to grow beneath the soil before it breaks the surface, your assumptions work silently at first. The outer reality is slow, methodical, and mechanical, but the inner change happens immediately. And if you stay anchored in that inner shift, reality has no choice but to catch up. When people abandon their assumption too soon, they interrupt the process. They allow the five senses to dictate what is true instead of remaining loyal to the inner scene they chose. This is where many fall short, not in their imagination, but in their patience. They confuse stillness with stagnation, and they begin to doubt the very thing they once believed in. Neville was clear. Faith is loyalty to the unseen reality. The moment you shift your awareness away from the assumption and back to the appearance of lack, you return to the old self. That's why manifestation is not about force or demand. It's about discipline, a quiet mental discipline that doesn't argue with appearances. Another subtle mistake is becoming overly attached to outcomes. People don't just imagine their desire, they begin obsessing over how and when it will appear. This obsession tightens the mind, clutters the imagination, and fills the inner world with contradiction. They are no longer living in the end. They are questioning, analyzing, calculating. Neville taught that your job is not to force the outcome, but to rest in the identity that naturally receives it. When you become overly focused on the result, you forget the foundation. Becoming inwardly, you begin chasing something outside yourself instead of living from the person who already has it. This creates inner resistance, and resistance always delays results. The most powerful place to live from is quiet certainty, a knowing that doesn't need to chase signs or demand proof, a state that says, "This is already done," and carries on with the day in peace. That's what assumption really means. It's not desperate or frantic, it's settled. This is why daily practice matters. Not to force results, but to keep yourself anchored. Each day presents opportunities to slip back into the old self through worry, comparison, or external distraction. But when you cultivate a consistent rhythm, you stay aligned with the version of you that already has. Start your mornings in gratitude, not generic, mechanical thanks, but targeted gratitude for what you are becoming. Feel the emotions of someone who has received. Neville often said, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. That's your aim. Gratitude shifts your mental atmosphere and invites peace. Even a few minutes can set the tone for the day. As you move through your day, become aware of your inner speech. When negative thoughts arise, and they will, don't panic. Simply shift. Redirect your mental dialogue. Speak as someone who trusts, someone who knows, not with bravado, but with quiet conviction. It is not about pretending nothing bothers you. It's about not letting it change your inner identity. At night, return to the technique Neville considered most powerful, the state akin to sleep. Lie down in a relaxed state, letting go of the physical day. Then bring to mind a short, vivid scene, something that implies your desire is already fulfilled. Keep it simple. See it clearly and feel it emotionally. Let it impress your subconscious as you drift into sleep. This is not a ritual. It's a conversation with your deeper mind. You are training it to accept a new normal. This cycle, morning gratitude, daytime awareness, evening sats, is how you build a new self-concept. Not in one burst of effort, but in repeated alignment. It's like reprogramming a system. Gentle, consistent input rewires the operating mode. And as your inner state becomes more stable, the outer begins to reflect it, often in ways you never predicted. Neville made it clear that true manifestation is not about commanding reality. It's about alignment. You are not the source of the outcome. You are the steward of your mind. The power is not yours in isolation. It was given to you, a gift to be directed wisely. When you imagine, when you feel, when you assume, you are not creating from nothing. You are stepping into what has already been provided and aligning your consciousness with it. This understanding keeps the ego in check. It prevents spiritual pride. You don't claim power as your own. You recognize it as a gift, a responsibility. Your role is to accept it, guide it, and trust its process. That's what Neville meant when he said, man moves in a world that is nothing more than his consciousness objectified. The world doesn't bend to your will. It mirrors your identity. If you want a different reflection, don't chase the mirror. Change the face you show it. Become the person who already walks in the life you desire. Think like them. Speak like them. Carry yourself with their energy, not to impress others, but to express who you've already become inside. Manifestation, as Neville taught, is not about proving anything to the world. It's about transforming your inner world so deeply that the outer cannot help but follow. This transformation doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't require external validation. It is silent, personal, and powerful. When you let go of urgency, when you stop watching the clock, when you drop the need for outer proof, you finally settle into the true creative state. That is where faith becomes more than belief. It becomes embodiment. You are no longer hoping. You are no longer waiting. You are walking as if it's already done. And in time, the world will rise to meet you. Tonight is your chance. Not tomorrow. Not when things look better on the outside. Try it tonight. Go to bed with a clear intention. Visualize one scene, short, simple, and full of meaning. Feel it as though it's already real. Let it settle into your subconscious as you drift to sleep. And as you do, remember, you're not forcing anything. You're aligning with the version of you that already has it. That shift alone changes everything. If this resonated with you, give this video a like and drop a comment below sharing your thoughts or experience. We read everyone. Make sure you subscribe to Ignis Mindset for more teachings rooted in inner mastery, self-discipline, and real transformation, not wishful thinking, but grounded practices that work when you do. Remember, you already have the power. You've just forgotten how to use it.